2, 1.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Representative Dan Miller. Thank you for joining us again for another session of our Disability and Mental Health Summit this year. Again, entirely virtual. Obviously, that's how it had to be this year. We do look forward to being back next year in person so that we can even offer more programs. We are very glad to have everything this year, but we look forward to obviously coming back. So thank you for joining us. Couple housekeeping things. Of course, I want to be sure to say thank you. You'll notice our interpreters are here. We thank them both. You'll see 2 of them here today. They're all sponsored by Gateway, our sponsors. We appreciate them as well. So thank you. And we also know too a couple of things here. Don't forget the Q&A function. We will come back. This session here, from what I understand, is going to be one to which you're going to have some questions about. So somewhere about a half hour in, I expect that they'll be coming back to us when looking for some questions to follow up on their presentation. So be ready for that. You could also just send your questions ahead of time as they come to you in our Q&A function, and we will be sure to get them answered for you to the best that we can. One thing, don't forget, I got to say this as well. I know we've had a couple of questions. Every year except for this year, we've always had Con Ed, continuing education capabilities. Unfortunately, this year, given the virtual format, we cannot. So just if you were hoping for that, I do understand, but we could not do it. So there are some limits, it seems, to what we are capable of doing. Next year, we'll be back with it. We know it's something that people really like and appreciate. So we'll be back. That being said, I will tell you, look, we're very excited to have this presentation and all of them. We really appreciate it. We know it's been a tough year. And we had, to be honest, a great amount of people respond to our RFPs. So we were very blessed to kind of sift through and find some creative sessions that we thought could be interesting. This one here is called Building Skills and Managing Behaviors Through the Power of Technology During a Pandemic. We have 2 great presenters who will be working with each other for this. First is Lindsay, either way she goes by that, that's fine. She is a systemic skill building manager for the Western region of Focus Behavioral Health, a company that values community, integrity, and compassion. She's been working in child and adult autism services for 5 years. Lindsay not only works as the SSB manager for a region, but in the year 2020, she also added the Zoom coordinator to her job title. She assists, therefore, in planning and organizing 30-plus Zoom groups, 3 of which she is the host. And if you haven't caught those yet, I tell you, they're very informative and very valuable. That's a lot of work for her to undertake. So we thank her for bringing her expertise here. Also with her is, now I got to see if I remember it, but Cindy Domeyer. Oh, thank God. Cindy has 30 years of experience working with individuals with disabilities. She served as a site coordinator for the Community Learning Center for at-risk students, including students with disabilities at Westminster High School in Maryland. She was a service coordinator for the AAW in PA and an SSB for Focus and Behavioral Health. Cindy is currently the legislative liaison for Focus, where she communicates with legislators about issues facing the adult autism community and the challenges and successes of the current services in Pennsylvania. Cindy, how's your lobbying efforts going? Are you doing good?
Yep, I'm doing great.
All right, well, that's good to know. That's good to hear. So I'm going to kick it both to you guys, and thank you so much. And we'll see you during the Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Representative Miller. All right, I'm going to try not to be repetitive here because you gave us a great introduction, which of course was our first slide today. So just brief overview of what Representative Miller just stated. First off, hello, good afternoon. I hope everybody's doing well. My name is Lindsay Marshall, and I am the Western Regional Skill Building Manager at Focus Behavioral Health. I also act as a participant manager to several of our individuals here at our organization. I also act as a skill builder. This past year, like Representative Miller said, I added Zoom coordinator to my title. I've been working with Focus for about 3 years, graduated with my bachelor's in social work from McDaniel College down in Maryland. And I've been working in this field for about 5 or 6 years, start to lose track. Cindy?
Yeah, and I'm Cindy Domeyer. And one of the things that I didn't send to Representative Miller earlier is I'm also the president of the Focus Foundation. as well as the legislative liaison for Focus Behavioral Health. And I have been a service coordinator and a skill builder. And I actually host our online gardening group for Focus Foundation. And I facilitate the pottery group as well to help them, since they're people that work outside of our community generally. And my degree is in sociology from Towson State University.
Great. And I should also add that the two groups that I'm currently running are a Thursday evening, we call it dinner and a chat group, where basically I get to show off my Rachel Ray skills and host my own little dinner group where we all get to chat and learn different cooking skills. And I also host a social group on Thursday afternoons. So it's a great time. All right, so let's get started. Let's start by answering this. Who are we? Why are we here? Focus was started about 10 years ago by our CEO, William Mudgett, who goes by Bill. Bill was inspired by his son, Tyler, who's on the autism spectrum. Tyler has a variety of challenging needs, and Bill wasn't the happiest with the provider choices at the time. He wanted his son to be offered as much independence as possible. That's when he decided to start his own agency, Focus Behavioral Health. Since then, Focus has grown to be one of the largest providers in the state of Pennsylvania under the adult autism waiver and is quickly growing services under the IDDA waivers. Offering services across the state of Pennsylvania, Focus has individual employment rate of approximately 50% and independent housing rate of 30%. We even help our individuals to gain the required independence they need to eventually leave the waiver system. Ultimately, it is our goal to help our individuals reach their full potential and to gain as much independence as possible in the process. Our sister nonprofit, which Cindy briefly touched on, is our Focus Foundation, which was started a few years after Focus Behavioral Health to just help offer more opportunities for support that may not be covered by state funding. The combination of these two organizations has allowed us to be much more creative with our approach with the services that we're able to offer. So today we're here to discuss our experiences of building skills and managing behaviors through the power of technology during a pandemic. And no, that is not a statement I ever thought I would have to say, let alone give a presentation on it, but here we are. So let's set the scene. Let's go back in time. It's March 2020. We all remember March 2020. How could we forget? We were just informed that all non-life sustaining businesses in Pennsylvania were to close all physical locations as of 8:00 p.m. to slow the spread of COVID-19. Definitely remember that day. We were all in a state of shock, right? We had all these emotions and thoughts and feelings, not knowing what would happen next or what tomorrow would look like. Roughly 200,000 Pennsylvanians applied for unemployment within a matter of weeks, with the hope of just making ends meet. Schools were canceled, childcare became an issue, and if you didn't have a mask, you couldn't go to the store. We couldn't go to our favorite restaurants. We limited how many times or how long we went to the store. We couldn't even see our friends and family anymore, as we were told to just stay home and don't leave unless you have to. Because we literally had no idea who could just have a runny nose and who may end up in the hospital on a respirator next week. And if you needed toilet paper, good luck. Cases were rising, hospitals were hitting max capacity. We were all just hoping and praying for normalcy again. We quickly realized that this was going to be the new way of life for who knows how long. We needed to keep going, and we needed to do what we could with what we had. Sure, we were all worried about our jobs and how we were going to pay our bills, but what about those on the spectrum? What about our individuals who rely on staff and support to help them be successful in their daily lives? Our individuals thrive on routine and schedules and checklists, and this was all practically thrown out the window. For example, somebody who maybe every Monday with their staff, they go to the gym, then they go to Wendy's for lunch, and then the library after that. Well, that wasn't possible anymore. We needed to create new routines, new structure, and we needed to work on educating our individuals on what was COVID-19 and give them the knowledge and tools to safely navigate their world. So this was our dilemma. We needed to figure out how we were going to continue to support our individuals. Knowing that we needed to move forward, where do we start? This was a question we were all asking ourselves, right? So as an agency, what we did not want to do was to just shut down entirely for months on end and hope that when we returned, whenever that would be, we could just pick back up where we were. That wasn't realistic. We couldn't do that to our individuals. We had already made so much progress and we wanted to continue down that same path. Finally, the suggestion was made to offer virtual services. This was something brand new and very few had experience with it. Many agencies immediately threw out the idea, but Focus was in the position where we had to find a way to provide the much needed support to our individuals that they needed and deserved. We needed to continue to work on skills and preventing the behaviors. This was our job. This is why we're here. But now we needed to switch gears and we needed to do things very differently so that we could ensure that not only our individuals and families, but also our staff were going to remain safe and healthy. So we began down this path of offering virtual services. We began to design a model of what virtual services would look like. And we were able to boil this down into 3 basic steps: identify, adapt, and expand. First, we identified what our in-person services had to achieve and what barriers we may have. Second, we adapted our in-person services to be able to be offered in a virtual setting. And finally, we took our successes and we expanded on them in order to continue supporting our individuals in a new way. So let's start with identify. This is a process where you take all the considerations, barriers, and existing services into place. This was our planning period. We ran into a lot of barriers. Individuals needing assistive technology. Not only our individuals, but also staff may not be as familiar with how to use online platforms such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or how to navigate their tablet or computer. Some of our individuals didn't even have internet. During this phase, we needed to look at what in-person services could even be offered. In what ways were we able to work on goals and behaviors? What outside the box ideas can we produce to offer these services? It was important to get families, staff, and all stakeholders involved and on board with this new idea and way of life. There were lots of things to consider during this phase, such as many of our individuals have different sensory concerns or limitations, and we were able to address these in person. But how could we do this in a virtual setting? How can we work on in-person skills in a virtual setting, such as laundry or even job skills? How can we offer community integration? It seemed that with the right mindset, any of our obstacles were able to be overcome. Another consideration is everyday lives. Here at Focus, we're all about choice and community integration. So we were challenged with ways to offer services, build skills, prevent behaviors, and integrate our individuals in the community virtually, all while continuing to live by everyday lives. The next step was choosing an appropriate platform. Had to be HIPAA compliant. These days there are endless options such as Zoom or Skype or Google Duo. The list goes on. We needed something that was easy to use and something people were already familiar with. So we chose Zoom. Zoom was user-friendly. It was affordable. It was completely free to our individuals and staff, and it was universal across different softwares. We reached out to Zoom and they assured us that with the right account, it was completely HIPAA compliant. So we chose Zoom. It took us a couple months to plan and overcome our barriers and considerations, but once we finally did, we were able to start finding ways to adapt in-person services to a virtual setting. With assistive technology, it required countless meetings with supports coordinators, counties, and families to find funding sources. And in some cases, we even donated our own devices to individuals. We found creative ways to offer in-person services in the middle of this pandemic for training our individuals. To do this safely, some of our staff even worked with individuals through a window to train on how to use the technology. We work closely with our individual staff and families to ensure that they have the skills and the knowledge of how to use this new technology. This was our biggest challenge in the beginning. Again, we were able to identify ways to overcome these challenges. We trained staff to utilize descriptive words, such as how something tastes or smells, or even the texture, to assist with sensory concerns. We trained our individuals on how to utilize Zoom on their phone so they could bring staff along with them to the laundry room or their place of employment. At Focus, we work with individuals on a variety of skills and behaviors. After identifying ways to bring in-person services to a virtual setting, we were required to adapt those services. One thought during this process was, how can we continue to offer community activities, allowing us to address social skills while also abiding by everyday lives? We finally ended up partnering with our sister nonprofit, Focus Foundation, which offers a variety of community activities to the public, such as life skills group, cooking classes, and even Sydney's gardening class. We were able to begin attending these groups once again online with the public through the same activities where individuals could continue to work on social skills while learning new things and sharing common interests, all from the safety of their own home. Obviously, this was not easy at first. When you do this, you must train staff on ways to continue to address social skills while not being in person. But with a little persistence and a lot of training, we were able to find ways to work on social skills as well as independent living skills in this new virtual setting. But we had to think outside the box. We are all facing this global pandemic together. Sure, the experience is different for each of us, but we are all affected by this. We're all in this together. So it only made sense to work through it together. After adapting our services, we were required to do some fine-tuning. We had to implement Zoom coordinators, such as myself, to assist with the day-to-day operations. Some things to think about when offering online services to individuals is, without clear guidelines, it is very, very difficult to gauge what is appropriate versus what's inappropriate. So we decided to implement very clear guidelines on what to expect and how to act during virtual sessions and activities. Taking lots and lots of feedback from our individuals, staff, families, and other stakeholders really allowed us to continue to adapt how we were offering services to individuals in this new setting. Finally, marketing. Again, we wanted to integrate our individuals in the community, so we assisted with marketing the online activities of the nonprofit. This way, our individuals would be able to continue to be offered social integration in a community virtual setting. We finally got a good feel of virtual services. Everything was going great. Then one day, one of our individuals reached out and requested to run their own group. We received approval, and our individual began to run their own community activity in this new virtual setting. We quickly found that individual facilitated activities not only allowed us to address social anxiety and community integration, but also a variety of other skills, such as time management, in order to keep activities on track, leadership opportunities, organization, which was required to run an activity that was open to the public, and even hygiene, as our individuals wanted to appear presentable while running a virtual activity. We quickly found that this offered a huge way to build skills for our individuals, and we began offering the option for our individuals to start running their own community activities. Here's, for example, some of our individual ran activities. Focus has teamed up with our sister nonprofit, like we stated before, to develop over 35 virtual groups. And these are continuing to grow on a monthly basis. So, such as our Pokemon group, creative workshop, anime discussion, Dungeons and Dragons, comedy club, life skills, self-care, trivia, movie and discussion group, as well as our autism support group. And the list goes on. So Cindy, do you want to talk about what we've learned?
Sure. So what did we learn? I can tell you we learned a lot, and we're continuing to learn new things every day. But as with all challenges, the pandemic has given us a greater opportunity for new learning experiences and growth as individuals, as staff members, as participants, and as a team. We've seen many benefits in how services can be delivered and how participants can be challenged to grow. We've also learned in the process how we can help the greater community by offering these virtual groups. So let's talk about some of the specific benefits that we've observed. As with all services that are person-centered, you need to find the right balance of in-person services versus virtual services based on an individual's needs. Some individuals may not find virtual services helpful at all, and we have individuals at Focus that don't participate in the virtual services. Some individuals need to have their services changed or tweaked and their objectives changed and tweaked. And again, that's by a case-by-case basis. But if you do this correctly and you really take their needs into consideration, the maximum benefit can be reached for each participant. And you can see a lot of gain in skill development when that happens. You need to think outside the box when using this type of support, as goals and objectives, again, need to be tweaked to be able to use this mode of delivery. You may also need to rethink your strategy for how you measure your progress. We find self-report works much better in a lot of cases with virtual services than observation by staff. Maybe family members can help with self-report, and we have a lot of families helping us with that currently. Online platforms also have a huge benefit of allowing services to be delivered when in-person services are not possible. Not only during the pandemic, but we also realized that when the weather's bad, we can now offer services where we couldn't before. And during holidays, we are being able to offer services now where that wasn't possible in the past. So let's talk about some of the benefits we observed in detail. Participating in services virtually appears to lower social anxiety. Being at home in a familiar and comfortable environment seems to be one of the keys to lowering social anxiety. Having choices in communication with online platforms also seems to help. Participants can choose to verbally respond or initiate questions, or they can type in the chat. They also have the choice to just observe without actively participating. Lower social anxiety seems to give some individuals encouragement to try more active communication challenges, like taking on leadership roles they weren't willing to do in the past. Individuals have more choices in activities and times of service, giving them a greater sense of control. This seems to lower their anxiety as well. Services can now be provided even during bad weather and when their transportation is an issue, and on holidays. During times when technical issues have arisen for us, participants have shown a greater level of patience. While the staff work through issues, participants have even sometimes assisted with these issues. This appears to give them a feeling of partnership with the staff working through difficulties. They also seems to give them a new sense of confidence and a feeling of being part of a team. Participants also have shown a greater ability to transition back to an activity after a technical issue has been overcome. The pandemic and the development of our online activities and services has given our participants more opportunities for everyday life experiences. From the onset of the pandemic, both participants and staff were faced with new challenges and life experiences that we had never faced before. We had the same end goal: to get back to work and life. Staff and participants interacted in a team approach to be able to get back to the business of life and overcome the new challenges together. Participants have met new people, learned new skills, developed confidence in the skills they had mastered, and in their ability to overcome challenges. These are things they have in common with everyone else in the community. Many of our participants gained a greater sense of independence over how and when their services are delivered. We have observed that during online social group activities, participants exhibit fewer behavioral issues than during in-person social groups. It appears that being in a comfortable, familiar environment while participating in social groups lowers anxiety and therefore has decreased behavioral issues. Participants' ability to step away virtually when they do experience anxiety by either choosing to leave the group or choosing to use a breakout room with staff helps to reduce behavioral issues. Given a private and quiet space to work through challenges before returning to the group activity helps reduce challenging behaviors. The use of breakout rooms has the added advantage of decreasing the distraction in the group activity. Participants and staff have learned new ways of working on behaviors from a distance. This has allowed some participants to develop more independence in implementing their coping strategies. We've observed that some new behavioral issues have developed with this new service. Offering behavior support without in-person services can be challenging, but these issues and challenges can be addressed and can be overcome. We've had to address new challenges with hygiene and communication and dress, and they've all been worked through over the last few months. Another benefit to the development of online services and group activities is the tremendous opportunity it has given us to do outreach services in the community. In the past, when Focus was approached by families and individuals in the community awaiting services or not eligible for services, our ability to offer support was very limited. This was due to lack of transportation, lack of available staff, and finances. With the development of online activities, Focus can now offer outreach services to anyone in the community who has the ability to use a computer or a smartphone, has internet service, or can access internet service. Issues of transportation, staffing, and finances have been mitigated. Another benefit we've observed in participating in online group activities has increased our participants' community exposure. Online platform activities have allowed participants to develop relationships and interact with people from all over the state. This has given our participants access to people from different backgrounds, different communities, and with a background of diverse experiences. Our online groups include people from other provider agencies, outreach individuals, as well as staff and other community members. These other community members have been willing to invest their time and experience in our groups. We currently have a local potter, a yoga instructor, and a nutritionist who donate time to teach classes to our participants. Travel is no longer a barrier to participation. We are able to offer groups on holidays, during bad weather days, allowing participants to feel less isolated and more positive. Our participants have a broader sense of community now than ever before. We've also seen much higher levels of engagement. Families appear to benefit from virtual services. Families are more personally experiencing the delivery of services with online social groups. Some family members are participating in the group themselves with their children, such as yoga and gardening group. This allows for shared experiences, which can add to family interests and share conversation outside the group activity. With lower anxiety and more comfort in social interaction, we have noticed that many participants who have exhibited leadership skills are now willing to take on those leadership opportunities. We have several participants leading groups with support from staff. They do the planning and the research to prepare for the group and lead their group on a regular basis. Participants in general are doing better with self-reporting on goals and objectives, giving them more independence and confidence with their individual support plans. Where participants have been struggling with self-reporting, some family members have stepped up to help with reporting. This allows for the families to be more aware of progress that's being made. With the challenges of the pandemic and the introduction of online platform services and social groups, we've observed greater independence in our participants. This independence seems to be due to a reduction in anxiety and behavioral issues and an increase in community engagement. Participants have gained leadership skills by being willing to take on challenges of leadership roles in the online groups. Participants are overall making greater progress with their goals and objectives. They have gained ground in organization, time management, hygiene, and communication skills. In addition, Focus as a provider has been able to extend our online activities to a greater number of needy individuals in the community. All of these gains have reinforced our belief that new challenges create new learning and growing opportunities, and the use of online platforms to provide services and social group activities have benefits that will far outlast the pandemic. So where are we now? Lindsay's put up how many hours of virtual groups we've put in this year. And as we look forward to the future and the return to some forms of in-person services, what does the future of our services look like? We believe that this service will continue to have a place in the Focus strategy. The benefits of this new form of service delivery and the opportunities for growth that it has garnered have proven it has a place in our long-term plans for services. We believe it is a great tool to introduce new participants into our social group activities. It also provides us an opportunity to offer a broader range of activities to our participants, regardless of their geographic location or transportation limitations. We are still at the beginning stages of discussion on where this will take us in the coming months. Our intention is to expand and integrate this service into our former in-person social groups in new and creative ways. As with all challenges the Focus team faces, we will do it with outside-the-box thinking and a teamwork approach. We really hope that this information has been helpful and encouraging to you, and we hope that you'll reach out to us with any questions you may have now or in the future.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. We do have some questions that have come in.
Okay,
So
we're
let's see
ready.
what we got. Actually, there's a bunch. So let me just pick one here. What about perspective of staff? Can you give any feedback about that?
Well, Lindsay, you're the coordinator for this, so you hear more about that than I do. So I'm going to let you take that one.
Sure. So throughout this entire process, as challenging as it has been, it's also been very rewarding. We've learned a lot about ourselves as staff and how to support individuals, giving us new challenges and new ways to tackle behaviors or skills. We're able to apply new strategies. We have a completely different perspective. Throughout the process, we have, like I stated, I'm one of the Zoom coordinators. We have another Zoom coordinator, Stephanie. We have a whole group, a whole Zoom committee, we call ourselves. And it's basically everybody who runs a group or assists an individual with running a group. We all team up, we meet, we bounce ideas off of each other. But all in all, through the entire process, we've even developed, we have our autism support group. We also have recently created a staff support group, knowing that just as much as our individuals need support, staff needs support too.
Yeah, I will add to what Lindsay said. Is we found that at the beginning of this, some of the new staff were really feeling isolated themselves when they were able to go back out into the community and work one-on-one with our individuals. Some of them were really struggling and felt like they were out on a limb by themselves. And this is where Focus shines as an organization, and the management of the company said we have to do something to support our staff. So that's why the online staff support group was created, and they can drop in. I think we do it 2 times, 2 or 3 times a month, Lindsay. They have those groups. And they can ask senior staff questions about how to do their job. And, so they are feeling much more supported, and we're doing that virtually as well.
Next question. Have you found any specific strategies to engage people who have limited to no technological skills? These programs seem great for individuals who can operate technology independently. But
Right.
What about for those who struggle?
So I'll start with that one, Cindy, and then I'll pass it back over to you.
Yep. That's cool.
This is a great one. And this is what Cindy brought up in her portion about evaluating goals. And sometimes we need to decide if a new goal needs created, especially based on the current times and what's going on right now. So if we know one of our individuals would really, really benefit from our virtual groups or just virtual sessions in general, then we need to assist them. We need to break down those barriers and help them with the technology. So creating a technology goal. I know one of our individuals, we created a specific goal, and it's about navigating technology, learning more about technology, how to utilize his iPad, how to utilize his computer. And then staff are able to go there now that we're able to be there in person. But even when we were not able to be there in person, we were able to assist over the phone, walking through step by step. This is how to turn on your iPad. This is how to get to the virtual calendar, stuff like that.
Yeah, we have a family sometimes that have helped too.
Mhm.
Sometimes families help them get on and, and work with them as well.
Thank you. Here's another question for you. How can a person with autism be part of your support group or any of your other groups?
I'm not quite sure what they're asking, what they mean by that question.
I think they're asking how they could get involved if they wanted to join the support group. And that information could be found through the Focus Foundation's website, or I think you can even get to it through fbhi.net. You would be able to find the online activities calendar there, and the autism support group is located there. It is occurring Thursday afternoons, I believe at 1 o'clock, right after my social group. It is also offered, I believe it's the first Monday of every month in the evening. if I remember correctly. There's over 30 groups now, so it's hard to keep track of them all.
Come on, Lindsay.
I know.
All right. How do you, did you have any clients who had limited internet access, and how would you address that?
I can answer that one. We actually have an outreach young man. And so what we do with outreach individuals so far, what we've been able to do is I've actually gone out and met with them when they call and contact us and ask to be part of it, and explain to them how to get online. And this young man was struggling because where he lives, he has very limited internet access. And so he's traveling to a friend's house. His mom has a friend that is willing to let him go there and use their internet. And so I am going back actually to meet with him this coming week, and work through it with him, to sit down with him and show him how to get online and do it with him the first time. And then he will take over from there and be able to travel to the friend's house, and get online and participate there. So we come up with all kinds of outside the box ways of doing things. And so that was just one.
Exactly. Yeah. And half the battle is just knowing what the problem is. What is the barrier? When we're able to identify the barrier, then we're able to decide how we're going to work through it. And we're able to do that in a team approach.
Okay, that sounds good. Next question here. Will you be offering any hybrid services like some schools are doing, a blend of virtual and in-person services for people?
I think that's where we're headed. We haven't done that yet because, to my knowledge, the state has not allowed us to do group activities yet. We're waiting for the okay for that to happen, and we're in discussion with that. We're not real sure how that's going to go. As I mentioned, I think that one of the discussions has been this would be a great way to introduce a new participant, someone who is new to social groups and feels very a lot of anxiety about that whole idea, that they could attend it virtually while other people are there physically, and then eventually as they get to know everybody in the group, this is just my thought, I don't know where, we'll kind of come up with some blended form of that. Eventually have them come in personally, because then they kind of feel like they know some of the other people, and it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable.
And we're also already kind of naturally doing this aside from group activities. When our staff are going out for individual sessions, a lot of times they're getting on groups together. So the staff is there face to face with the individual, masked up, socially distanced. And the staff or the participant is able to either get on their computer, their phone, or their tablet and participate in the group together. So even though we can't go out and do a bowling activity or a group life skills class or a community picnic or whatever it may be that we normally do this time of year, we're able to still offer it in a different setting.
Thank you. Will you continue to offer virtual services even when we are back to normal?
So that is the question, right? That's the question of the year, right? Or going on more than a year, because our groups have been so successful. And I've had several individuals come to me personally asking this question for themselves, because they love the virtual setting. They love the groups. They love having both. They like the opportunity to work in person with their staff, but they like the option that when they're done with staff for the day, they can hop on an evening group and cook a meal together and talk about what they're having for dinner. It maximizes those opportunities. So what the future holds, we're very unsure of. We're still learning, but we're able to gauge interest, and we're able to put out, a Google survey, and kind of ask people anonymously what they're looking for, what they like, and then decide what the future looks like from there.
Yeah, I think the answer to that will be that we probably will, and most likely will, for a couple reasons. One of the benefits to this has been, like we have individuals in Pittsburgh that are participating in a pottery group that happens in Hanover. That potter is not available to them in person. They can't go to his shop and watch him do his pottery, but they can now because he's doing it virtually, and that would limit that ability, if we stop doing it. The same thing with the gardening group that happens in my backyard. And they could do a gardening group out there, but it wouldn't be the same as doing it with us. And so, I think that it will stay. Plus the opportunities for outreach, that is where our heart lies, is we want to give everybody help that asks for it in some way, shape, or form that we can. We've been able to do more things for outreach people than ever before. And I'm getting phone calls every week from people that are, out in the community and have no services. And this gives them a window into, understanding that there are other people out there that are having the same struggles they are. It's a cool thing. It's wonderful.
I think Lindsay was touching on this here, but have you been, the question here is basically saying, have you been tabulating preferences from people regarding the virtual services as compared to in-person services? Have you been collecting that information?
Definitely. And I'm thinking of one individual specific who has asked a similar question. It's been a concern because working with our individuals on the spectrum, change is really, really hard. It's not only hard for them, but it's hard for staff. And it's important that we're aware of that and we keep that in mind when making any change. So we're aware of it and we're open to the continuation of virtual services, which is kind of what we touched on in the other question. But yes, we are gauging interest and we are discussing, what they want to see, because like I said, we have 30 plus groups right now, but once we're out and about and some of the restrictions are lifted, then we're still going to want to have a presence online because they've been so successful. But maybe that means we only have 15 virtual groups instead of 30.
Right. Well, and that may lead to this one here a bit too. Is did you have any client feedback that showed that they were getting overwhelmed by online services? The person is thinking about young adults or kids who are participating in online school or in high school or college, and since they're online, is there sort of a wall or a diminished return because of that? And if so, how do you help them through that?
I'll start with that one, Cindy, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
So another individual I have in mind, we have several individuals who I like to call our frequent Zoomers. They attend many, many of our groups and they love them. And they're great. They do awesome on it. But we've noticed some individuals towards the end of the week get really overwhelmed. They've participated in many of the groups. I'd like to say maybe close to 75% of the 30 groups. That's a lot of groups. A lot of times they're either having in-person sessions on top of that, or they're having individual online sessions on top of that. So yes, there is that Zoom fatigue, if you want to call it, but we're seeing that definitely towards the end of the week. Come Friday, we all kind of have ants in our pants. And some of our individuals start to struggle on those days, especially if they don't have staff that are able to redirect them. But thankfully through this platform and how we've been doing our groups for a year now, a lot of our staff are familiar with individuals from other regions. So Cindy is in Central PA, I'm in Western PA. We've really grown to learn a lot about individuals from across the state. But also to add on to the second portion of the question was how to engage with them. We're really utilizing that chat feature as much as possible, that the private chat feature. So if an individual is starting to feel anxious, they start to appear anxious, we're reaching out to them in the chat. So it's not in front of the entire group, but it's personal chat, or maybe they prefer to be on group and staff be on the phone with them or be texting them, whatever their preference is, that's how staff is able to interact with them. But a lot of times it is done through the chat feature.
Okay, another question is, do the people who participate in these chats have help from their parents during the Zoom meetings, or I guess in some way too, like what is the role of parents in these meetings for minors?
Yeah. Well, ours is geared, and we've had to talk about this, and I'll let Lindsay say that in a minute. But you know, this is really geared for adults, not children so much. I think another organization could definitely develop an online group or an online, whole program for children that would be just as beneficial as the adults. But we had to kind of draw the line because our adults want to be adults and they want to be able to have adult conversations. And so, we make that caveat to people to understand that this is for 18-year-olds and older, really. And we don't limit the people that participate, but we want to make sure parents understand that some conversations may be have somewhat adult content. Lindsay, I don't know if you want to add more to that.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, parents and families in general, this has really opened the door for them to also participate in services in one way or another. If their son or daughter in the next room over, or maybe the same room is on, well, we have an individual who runs an animal group and her mom is in the same room and she helps facilitate from time to time or just helps manage so her child doesn't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So it's able to offer those opportunities. Same with we have yoga, and if an individual wants to do yoga with their mom or their dad or their sister or brother or whoever it may be, even staff, you can turn off your camera and you can participate in yoga and follow along with the instructor.
Thank you. And I think this may be the last one. So if anybody has something else, let me know. Could you share some more detail about how you gather the self-report information from the people you work with?
Sure. So I'll touch on that first as far as from a systematic skills perspective. So we're measuring skills and goals and objectives and opportunities. So for example, if an individual has a meal prep goal, so a meal preparation goal, and we are meeting with them at noon, and they typically wake up at 9 o'clock, they've already had an opportunity to prepare breakfast. So we say, hey, Joe, what'd you have for breakfast today? And they say, oh, I made an omelet. Awesome. That's great. Do you have any dishes that you need to work on? Let's take a look at your sink. And they carry us over to their sink and see if there's any dishes. And, we see that there is a skillet in the sink, which clearly there's egg on. They definitely made an omelet. Sure, we have some individuals that maybe self-report. Maybe it's not accurate information. Staff are able to gauge that.
Okay. Well, I'm pausing here just in case. I think you were right. There would be a lot of questions. I think you had a lot of questions. So thank you. Again, I'm just pausing for a moment. I think we've got it. Hold on. Let me double check. All right. Hold on. It could be a benefit to an adult having the adult level conversation while there may be a family member nearby to observe or hear the content. They have rights, wield, and protections. Well, thank you, Christine. Not a question, but a point, and I appreciate that as well. All right, ladies, I will thank you both for your time today. We very much appreciate your involvement in our discussion and bringing a different topic. This is not something that we have gone into in the past in the summit, and obviously the pandemic has changed many things. I often say, of course, whatever your challenge was before the pandemic, it has likely been exacerbated after the pandemic. There's no doubt there's going to have to be lessons learned, not just all levels of government, but levels of services, businesses, everything. There's going to have to be things that we need to do differently to prepare to meet goals and needs, but also prepare for what comes next. And I know it wasn't the main topic of your discussion, but isolation and how to break down barriers during these times is something that's going to require more than any 1 hour conversation could possibly give. And there's a lot to it. It is something, again, that we talked about briefly before the pandemic. It is something now that's going to take a little time for us to get a greater handle on. No matter what the setting almost is, for many people, not all people, that there have been negatives in relation to sort of isolation and the lack of social contact. So how we redo things and how we provide that is something to work on, and how we measure the success of it. One of the things we talk about even in the telehealth arena is we can provide something, but what's the quality metric that we're putting in? How do you measure that service or that interaction between the two different mediums? Which is more beneficial? And if there is one that is not as beneficial, what can you do to improve it along the way? So it's going to take more study for all these types of things for us to get there. But again, we appreciate your time and everybody over at Focus for joining us this year. So thank you. I want to remind everybody too that our Disability and Mental Health Summit, you're just finishing day one. You're just finishing day one. We'll be back here tomorrow, 9 o'clock, legislative panel. We'll be talking about the financial challenges that face too many people in relation to limitations in order to keep their benefits, say, from the federal government, what they're stuck or limited by in order to earn money, save money, anything like this. We're going to be talking about that. And then we're also going to be talking about the educational, especially the high percentage of special education needs that are in the delinquency system. So when we find a kid who gets into a little bit of a trouble and they end up maybe getting placed or something, what are the real impact, or where are we falling short in regarding their education needs, even though by all legal purposes, they are wards of the state? What do we need to do better? So that's where we're going to start off tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We will finish again through the day with a series of programming. We invite you to join us, and we hope at the very least, at a minimum, to see everybody back again next year. Don't forget, we'll be back in person, God willing. I think it's going to happen, right? So thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.